Welcome to another Compassion Works for All video. And we have our friend Annie Tendron with us again today. And even though she lives out of town, she's come into town. And we were having a discussion a little while ago about how hard it is in life when people have enormous issues that they are dealing with. And here we are, maybe friends or relatives of them, and we know what a hard time they're having. Sometimes even seeing self-defeating behavior. But boy, what do we do when we care about people and they're having such an awful time, especially if there's a mental illness involved or circumstances that are beyond their control in some ways. Anila, we were talking about this, but what do you have to say to the people that are watching who are living this very, very difficult life challenge?
Well, I'd like to say first that it's not just you. I'm living it too, right there with you. A lot of us are living this situation with our families and our friends. We're living through this right now together, and I have the same kind of questions when I when I try to contact my friends and family members who are going through these problems like mental illness and addictions, and they're not doing the right thing. They're usually doing all the wrong things, and which ends up in homelessness and losing their children, losing their cars, losing their livelihood, everything. So a lot of times I'm dealing with people in my family and in my circle of friends who they've lost everything, and all they want from me sometimes is money so they can keep doing what they're doing. And I've really realized that I really would like to help them, and I really want to help them, but the best way to help them is not to keep giving them money so they keep going into the same problems, the same using the money for not for things that they need, but for drugs or whatever. So I think the hardest thing for me to remember is that not to get angry at that person, not to blame that person for what they're doing or what they're going through, the mistakes they're making, but to really look at the fact that it's the delusion in their mind that's making them do this. We all have these basic, and they are not permanent, but basic, the three poisons. In Buddhism they call it greed, ignorance, and hatred, or attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And we all have this, but they're not part of the clear nature of mind. The clear nature of mind is always clear. They're like clouds that come and go. And so to think of these people's problems as their delusions that are not permanent. They're not a part of them. They aren't who they are. It's the kind of mental state that's making them do these things, but there's always hope that they will somehow, sooner or later, discover the clear light of mind, discover that they have such potential before it's too late, before they've burned all the bridges, and to help them understand that there is a positive end, there is a positive life possible for them, and to encourage them toward that, and to tell them and back them up as they try to seek that, to encourage them to get into treatment, encourage them to go to meetings, encourage them any way we can to make themselves better, to get help and to get better. Because as long as they don't get help, I know that they're going to keep circling in the same suffering, the same problems over and over and over. So I really feel like my role now with these people in my life is really to encourage them and to not give up on them, and to never push them out of my heart totally. but to be sensible, not to be what they call a person of idiot compassion, which is kind of a, constantly giving money but no other help, and knowing that the money really isn't going to do anything for solving their problems, but to have a wise compassion. I'm working on getting more of a wise compassion toward the folks in my life that I really want to help, but I feel so helpless about. So what I've come to is really encouragement is what I can do for them, and not a lot else.
So we do know that some people just seem to have a much tougher time with life.
Yeah.
Other people seem to have everything going for them, but I know that's probably not true either. But what about these people that seem to have so much that goes wrong?
Well, the Buddha warned us about this. The first thing that the Buddha said was, life is suffering. And that was the first thing that really drew me to Buddhism, because I already knew that. We all have this sense that we are dissatisfied. There's a basic dissatisfaction, and we are dissatisfied, and we all suffer. And so this is kind of the state of affairs for all of us, until we start to understand what's causing this suffering, and we start to work ourselves out of it and toward more positive states of mind, clear mind, and toward enlightenment. But until we do, to understand that this is the way it is, and this is really the way it is, not just for people who are outwardly showing these things, but also for rich people, also for people who look like they have everything. How many times have we heard about people who are very well off having very serious problems or doing, terrible things? We all have this basic problem of not really understanding what causes our suffering and how to get out of it. So I feel like the most we can do for people really is to help them understand themselves. What are the causes? What's causing their suffering? And to understand the law of cause and effect, that they are creating the causes that they are experiencing the effects for, or they're experiencing effects of previous causes that they have created. So people, unless they understand karma and the law of cause and effect, I don't think they'll ever stop blaming somebody else.
So say that again and tell us again. The law of karma, or the law of cause and effect, is that people create the causes for what happens. Is that
Right.
what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. This gets a little difficult with folks because it's not evident sometimes in one lifetime. And I do believe that I've had past lives and I'll have future lives. And so a lot of times when really bad things are happening in my life, instead of thinking of someone to blame for these things, if I think, well, this result I'm experiencing right now, this negative result is because of something I created in the past that's coming back as an effect in my life. And this is a really good way when somebody's yelling at you or harming you or something like that, to think, I would not be experiencing this if I hadn't created the cause for this somewhere in my mind stream. So it's a different way to look at people who are harming you, and if somebody is harming you, to turn it toward that. This is a result coming back because I've created a cause, and also this is the person's delusions, not the person himself, and to not hate that person or react to that person or harm that person back, but to think of it that way, to accept it. To accept suffering that way is to understand it better. And if we understand it better, then we can stop creating those causes. If we don't stop creating the causes, this will continue to cycle and cycle and cycle, and we will continue to experience suffering over and over again, all different kinds, until we understand that we have to stop creating the causes.
So we can create the causes for good things,
Yes.
too.
Right. If we didn't create the cause, if we did create the causes for positive actions, I mean, for instance, motivation is everything. So if we start to say something, or we start to do something, to first check our minds and say, is this going to be helpful? Am I doing this because I want to help this person and not because I want something for myself?
Mm-hmm.
If you start with a selfish motivation, then that's going to create a negative cause, which will result in a negative, some kind of result. So if we create positive causes with good motivation, with good heart, and with kindness and compassion, then we will experience good results, positive results. I mean, that is the law of karma, cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
If we create negative causes, we will have negative results, and the same with positive. And so this is the wonderful thing about our lives, is that we have this potential to create so much good. If we could just do it, if we could just remember that, and motivate ourselves, every bit of our speech and action with, I want to be helpful, I want to benefit, not I want to get this for myself, or I want to get back at this guy, or whatever, but a positive cause. And that will only result in positive results.
So when we have people that we care about that in effect are creating negative events for themselves, the compassionate thing is to be with them, support them, don't perpetuate, but don't punish them.
Right.
And if we can, teach them that they're the only ones that can change their life by finding more positive actions that will then create better results.
And this is a very difficult thing to do when people are in the throes of their problems and addictions, because there's a total mental tendency to blame somebody else. And I've experienced this, I mean, because I've been the one blamed a lot. But we all see it, that they're always blaming somebody else for something that happened to them. So it's really, I think you have to be really gentle, and you have to be very persistent in encouraging them to think differently, and to help them catch themselves when they do tend to blame and not to take responsibility, but to really encourage them to not only take responsibility, but also just to have the idea that they can improve, that they have that potential, what we would call Buddha nature, that clear mind, that potential that's always there, and they can always access it, they can always change. It isn't like everything is totally fixed and permanent, and they're going to be permanently bad and permanently in problems. These are all changeable things. Everything is impermanent and very changeable, and to encourage them to make those changes themselves, rather than waiting for somebody else to do it for them, which doesn't work anyway. Nobody can do it for them. But I think that I feel like that's the only thing we can give people at this point when they're really suffering.
Oh, that is a very, very wonderful teaching, and so important. And if we can remember that when we see people that we care about who come and say, fix it for me, rescue me, if they can hear your words and remember the compassion and the wise compassion that is needed. Thank you very, very much.
Well, just remember, I'm trying to remember them too as we go.
We're all remembering. The best we can do is remember. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time you come to town.
Thank you, and good luck to everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.